Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Grapplers Academy. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most important but probably most overlooked aspects of Jiu-Jitsu, and that is strength training.
Yeah, we cover various different subjects here where we're talking about your recovery, the different types of strength, and also where it sort of transfers from the gym and onto the mat. We don't go too detailed into the types of exercises, but we do give you some sources of where you can go and get help and also hopefully further your strength training journey.
And the age-old debate of how functional is a bicep curl. Because I don't really, I can't really think of anything more that like. What do you want to talk about in terms of structure or like exercise selection or just like overall thought process behind it?
I think the initial thing will be the overall thought process, because I don't know about yourself, but I've been to a couple of clubs where it's sort of technique beats strength, and the whole I get my strength training. Do you know the old Marcelo sort of phrase? I get my strength training on the mats. It's like, yeah, that's great, but then what if you come across someone that's stronger than you with a similar level of technique? 100%. That strength's gonna beat you.
Yeah, technique beats strength until you've both got the same level of technique, and then strength is going to crush you.
Yeah,
pretty much.
It's like, Joe, when you sort of have that new really athletic white belt that comes to the gym and he starts battering all the blue belts. It's like there's something in that.
Yeah.
And it often gets overlooked by a lot of purists, maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, not even necessarily purists. Just like because probably purist and somebody who's like fully into jiu-jitsu definitely understands the benefit of strength training. But name one single sport where athleticism isn't the key contributing factor to being the best one, because I'll tell you now, at the top level, everybody's basically got the same level of technique, and it's who's got the more strength or athleticism to apply it.
Now, that's all snooker.
I mean, maybe if you can throw the dart harder or hit the ball harder, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's extra points for that. You should have like a pressure pad on the dartboard, and you get rated on the amount of power you can drive it in with as well.
That'd be quite interesting, that, to be fair.
Yeah, that'd be a better sport altogether, wouldn't it? I would pay more to watch that than I would to pay watch darts. I think darts is just an excuse to go out and get drunk, pretty much.
Oh, 100%. It does look like a fun time, though, on the telly.
There's almost no sport where being stronger and more athletic is a positive attribute. I think the main thing that people get most mistaken by is thinking like we're talking about being more muscular. And I'm definitely not talking about being more muscular, because I can tell you now, you don't need to be more muscular to be stronger.
No.
And yeah, you can argue that, well, you can't even argue, it's pretty much a fact that the more muscle tissue you've got, the more potential strength you've got to develop and utilize over time. A bigger muscle has the potential to be a stronger muscle if trained as such. But just being bigger muscular, that probably can be a disadvantage to some extent. But being stronger is no disadvantage. Like I've had this argument with loads of people over the years. Name a negative benefit to being stronger in life. I feel like that guy who just sits at the table, is it Stephen Crowder?
Oh yeah, feet back.
Yeah, I'm just there with my cup of coffee. Like, strength in life isn't a positive. Like, tell me otherwise. You can't name a reason why being stronger isn't a benefit in life.
No, even just like coming away from the sport, like day-to-day things. Like I do it all the time when I go shopping. I have to do the bags in one route, in one journey. Now, stronger I am, the easier that one journey is. But like, yeah, like simple things like moving furniture around the house. I'm not gonna call upon my friends that aren't as strong if I need to move house. Like, no, but it's a fact of life. Like, you getting strong or being strong makes day-to-day tasks a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. So, and also a lesson to that in life as well is don't have weak friends. Or if you're a weak person, don't expect to have many friends or people asking you to come and do stuff.
Unfortunately, I'll be calling all my friends because, you know.
And the other thing as well, like I'll throw it back to having a decent amount of muscle tissue as well, is I've always thought and referred to muscle tissue as like having body armor. And it's like putting layers of protection on yourself, isn't it? Because we do a sport where we get beat up and it's a lot of impact on the body. And that's not to say that you shouldn't have flexibility and mobility. And maybe that's something that we can talk about separately at another time. But the more muscle tissue you've got, the more body armor you put in on your body, and the better protection you've got, the greater resistant you are to injury, the more longevity you've got in training. And I think some people, like you said at the beginning, maybe the purist is the way that you said it, but they'll look at somebody who's big and muscular and think that's a detriment, or it's, and don't get me wrong, it can sometimes for that big strong white belt who comes in and overuses their athleticism be a bit of a negative at first, because they're not going to take the time to learn the technique because they can just smash everybody with power. But that's just a mistake that they're going to make early doors, and when they get to that upper level blue belt level and beyond, actually that negates itself, doesn't it? Because you come up against those people who've got the strength and the technique, and then they can just use their technique with strength against you. So that's pretty short-lived and only hinders you in the short term.
Yeah, it's sort of like, because there's going to be, back to like the sport, there's a huge aspect of it that does require strength. Like, even in your own weight division, so say both lightweights, the stronger athlete will typically get the more mechanical advantage when it comes to applying techniques, breaking down posture, keeping hold of a limb, trying to sort of prize limbs apart for submissions, and even trying to defend submissions as well. Like, I remember, I think I might have told you this, when training a while back with one of the lads at ASW, Chaddy. He's like one of the strongest guys I've ever rolled with. And I managed to get onto an armbar on him, and I had my full body attached to his arm, trying to extend myself. And no word of a lie, his arm was here, and he just sort of bicep curled me, one-handed. I went, bicep curls that lad. And I was like, I'm 100 kilos. You're 100 kilos, and you just bicep curled me. But like,
well, that we can get onto it now. We can get onto it later, like functional exercises for jiu-jitsu, and I put bicep curls and curls into that category, as well as leg extensions.
Yeah,
definitely as well. But let's stick with what we were just talking about there as well, because that's a good point. Because there's raw strength and then there's strength endurance. And you might be explosive and dynamic. Like, I think a good example of this is like Nicky Rod. When you look at him, he's got that explosive raw strength, like a wrestler. But then there's like strength endurance as well. And how many times have you been in a roll where you've been trying to squeeze somebody's head off, trying to apply that submission, and your arms gas out, and the guy on the bottom knows it's not quite in, and they're just waiting for your arms to gas out. I know I've been there when I was trying to apply crappy technique onto somebody, and basically just end up gassing your arms out, and then you're screwed when they come out. They're just kind of waiting to capitalize on that. And that's where the raw strength and the strength endurance comes into a massive play. And you've got to actually train both. And you probably, I'll let you elaborate on it, but like, just explain what the difference between like a raw strength or explosive strength and strength endurance is, and then how that actually applies different onto the mats.
Yeah, so like the raw strength initially is, the way I look at it is, that's what you can do was sort of like your max capacity. So what some might call like a 1 rep max, or just being like just overall strong. And then when we sort of refer to the strength endurance is, how long can you be that strong for? So yeah, you might be able to do deadlift 100 kilograms, for example, but can you repeat that for a duration of time? Or can you say get that 5 times and then give yourself 30 seconds, then get another 5 times, then recover quickly and get another 5 times? Like, strength endurance, it's a bit of a broad umbrella, isn't it?
Mm.
Then that sort of explosive strength and explosive power is that ability to literally explode. So can you draw upon that strength like really quickly and use it to your advantage? Whereas sometimes like some strength, it may be like a gradual onset where you've got the squeeze and you're slowly getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And that'll be sort of like your strength endurance and your sort of raw strength. Then your explosive strength could be your shot in for your double leg. And you want to have a lot of explosive power and explosive strength to be able to get in, secure, and continue through. And then again, having that strength endurance is the ability to do that explosive strength again and again and again without too much of a drop in the strength that you're putting out.
Yeah, and your aerobic capacity can play a factor in that as well.
Yeah.
I've always said that wrestling and grappling sports are probably the most athletic sports that anybody does. And they're really tough to train for as well because there's so many different aspects to it. Like, let's just say, for example, you're a sprinter or a shot put athlete or something like that. Like, you've probably got to be just more explosive in what you're doing, and you don't really have to have that strength endurance because it's like a one repetition effort, or it's like you're doing it for 20 seconds one time or something like that. But wrestling, jiu-jitsu, anything grappling, you've got to have that explosive aspect where you're quick in on the shot or something like that. And then that ability to pin somebody to the floor, to hold them, to get the strangle, to extend their arm over a longer period of time, even like in a clinch, to be able to cinch down on somebody's neck and then be able to isometrically hold that position and inhibit their movement. I know we like to play with this position a lot, like a clinch position where we've got one hand on the back of the neck. And if you look at the position there, it's like a tight bicep curl position, isn't it? And being able to hold that pinch in and like inhibit your opponent's movement and break down their posture. And actually, when you look at how to train those two things, it's completely different. And actually trying to marry that up in the week to get the best combination of both aspects of lifting is quite difficult and takes a lot of time to develop over the years. Yeah. And particularly so because when you're rolling, it's really impactful on the body depending on how hard you're going training. And that's why you've got to get a good mix between hard rounds, easy rounds throughout the week, as you've got to get hard training in the gym and make sure that you get some like recovery assistance work in there in the gym as well. And it's really hard and you're going to get beat up and your body's going to get beat up and you're not going to feel like you're recovering. Sometimes you might feel like you're overtraining. I've certainly had that experience and it's taken years to kind of get to the point where I feel now that I've got the right balance between working hard and then recovery working, so actually kind of revitalizing my energy and giving me more energy to then go and train again hard the next day, but not doing nothing. It's like a constant work to keep riding that wave of training hard and recovery, and then hopefully it always is going up.
It's sort of what a lot of people fail to realize as well is a lot of it's trial and error, just like grappling. Like if you don't get it right, that's fine. Recover, go back to the drawing board, make your adjustments. Exactly the same as if you were to try that sweep and it doesn't quite work again. You don't just be like, I'm not doing that sweep again. You go back to the drawing board and you sort of evaluate what's going on. So like, because I think that's a bit of a big off-putter as well for a lot of people is the recovery. Like the big dreaded thing, it will be like, oh, I've got leg day today, so rolling tomorrow is going to be horrible. It's sort of like, your strength training and things like that is to complement your time on the mat. It's not to become a detriment. And also in the same light is, yeah, your focus should be on your grappling. But then if your grappling is impacting your other aspects of your training, then yeah, maybe you might need to have those ups and downs days where you'll be like, okay, tonight is 100% rounds. Then tomorrow will be 80%. Then I'm back up to maybe 90, then down to 70. And having that sort of wave where you have your set hard nights and you have your set, not necessarily easy nights, but a bit more focused nights where it's there to recover. You're moving around and getting the joints moving without putting too much stress on them. And I think like that is a factor that may put people off strength training as well for jiu-jitsu, because not being able to move the next day too well and then getting onto the mat and essentially having your ass handed to you because you're not able to move functionally.
There's a couple of points that you could expand on that as far as I'm concerned, and it's something I've learned over the years because I've experimented with loads of different methodologies of training, powerlifting, bodybuilding style stuff, Olympic lifting. You want to try and spread your load in your training sessions, like you said. If people, I think the easiest one for most people to get into or like associate mentally if they don't train resistance training is thinking like resistance is bodybuilding style training where they'll do like a chest day, a leg day or whatever. I don't think that's probably the smartest way to train for jiu-jitsu because you end up overworking that one particular muscle group, which is fine if you're a bodybuilder. You can do that because you're not actually going to go and try and develop your skill in another area. And actually, the training that you would do if you were just doing bodybuilding is fine because you've got your recovery time. Now, if you need to go on the mat and do some training, it's going to be a detriment to your training, and actually you're not going to be able to develop in both areas at the same time equally. So from my personal experience, I've found over the years that I've performed best in the gym when I'm doing a full body style workout where I'm spreading the load and the intensity of that workout over multiple different muscle groups in the gym. That allows me to progress in the gym continually at the same time as not accumulating too much impact or intensity that it's a detriment to my training on the mats. And like you said about having undulating days in terms of intensity as well, another quick one that I'll throw out there just for a quick tip to somebody is train both of your hard days on the same day. Is like train a hard day in the gym and go and train your hard day on the mats at the same time, and then have a full recovery from both on the next day. And that doesn't mean do nothing. That means you can work on technique or drilling in class, and then you can work on mobility and some accessory stuff that you're not doing in the gym on the other day, like strengthening your neck is a big important one, improving your mobility, and probably actually just having a bit of a stretch and doing some foam roller work is considered to be an active recovery day that's going to assist probably how you feel from being beat up from the day before in the gym and on the mats.
Yeah. I think as well, like, this goes back to one of our previous episodes as well, where we're talking about using all your training partners, like, intelligently. So, like, on those hard days, you'll go with the players that are on your team where you know it's going to be a horrible and rough round, where it's going to be fast-paced, lots of exchanges, and essentially no mercy given between us. And then on the next day, you'll go with the partners where they're either less experienced, so you can control the tempo and the rhythm. They might be more of a technical role with you. So like they might be more experienced players, but they don't have the aspiration to come in and beat themselves up every night. They want to come in and refine their technique. And it's sort of using those training partners on those correct days to make sure that you're getting the right level of intensity for yourself as well. Because I think otherwise it's very easy to burn out in this sport. And like going back onto what you were saying before as well about the full body thing, when things are sort of programmed correctly as well, this might not make sense to everyone at first, but you will get more volume across the working joints if you spread it across the full week, as opposed to doing your bodybuilder style training where I'm going to get 10 sets on my chest, 10 sets on my back, 10 sets on my legs, 10 sets on my arms, and then start again. You've got 5 days in a week, and if you get 3 sets every day, let's say you weight training 5 days a week, you get 3 sets 5 days a week, you've accumulated 15 sets across that week, as opposed to getting the 10 sets and waiting 7 days till the next one. You've already increased your workload by 50%.
Yeah. And you're not going to beat yourself up at the same time doing it.
Exactly, yeah. Which I think it's a concept that's missed on a lot of people, even like people that train bodybuilding style. Like there's still a sort of element of we need to train this way because it's always been done this way, as opposed to being actually, yeah, if we do it this way, then I can get more done. Which sort of draws upon another point here where if you're not sure what you're doing, or you sort of, like myself, I've recently took on a strength and conditioning coach, like having somebody else do that thinking for you and doing the work and like sort of doing the programming for you makes the programming a lot easier. Because I know what I'm like. When I'm in the gym, I will happily just go in there, do bench, arms, and back, and then do legs. I quite enjoy legs as well, but I'll stick to that bodybuilding style training, and then I'll be sore the next day and I'll be complaining. Whereas giving somebody else the reins, I'm sort of like, all right, I know what I've got to do now.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I completely agree with what you're saying. It is such a big topic to try and digest for the average person who works a normal job and then goes and trains. Like, the amount of stuff that you need to know to develop a good, effective training program. I've been doing this job for years. PT, I've coached MMA guys, I've coached Jits guys, I've coached everybody who's coming from wanting to do triathlon all the way through to powerlifting and general sport strength. It's basically all I'm thinking about all day long. And it's taken me years to get to the point where I can effectively program for anybody for whatever sport it is. And the most difficult one I've had is with myself.
Yeah.
And probably because you're second guessing it all the time as a coach. Like, that is probably the biggest mistake that most coaches make. They second guess the workouts that they program for themselves. And, you think you've got your best interests at heart. Actually, just having somebody else taking the reins, even if you feel like you're competent knowing what you're doing, having a second eye on that and somebody just to say, just rein it in a bit today. Or you need to push a little bit harder here today is a good thing. But there's so many different aspects to it. And ultimately, the thing that you want to try and do when you're getting into it, and I'll kind of touch on another point after I've talked about this, is just learn your body better. Learn what you feel like after you're doing a workout. Learn how much capacity you can push and what your endurance and your capability for work is. Like, what is your maximum capacity for work before you start feeling broken down? Because actually, you don't want to get to that point where you're continually not recovering. You want to always be trying to progress. So a smaller, slower level of progression is going to be more beneficial for you than absolutely nailing yourself initially and then taking 5 days to recover and then actually dropping off that progressive wave or uprise. I think one of the biggest mistakes as well for people who are looking at getting into strength and conditioning is, and this applies for Jits or MMA guys as much as it does for that lady who's coming into the gym for the first time at 50 years old, and they're doing that workout and they've not worked out before ever. They've got an office job maybe, and again, jiu-jitsu and grappling and MMA is very different from resistance training in the gym. You've got to be sore like that first couple of sessions. You've got to be sore. I remember my first leg session when I first started training properly when I was about 17 or 18. I couldn't walk down the stairs for probably about 2 weeks. I couldn't get up and down off the toilet probably for about 3 weeks. And that's just because the guy that I was training with had been training for years. I was like, how can I jump in with a session with you, mate? And he just obliterated me. And it's all a learning curve. But, you are going to be sore, but your body will adapt to that soreness. Don't leave it too long in between training because you're not actually going to hit that peak of where we're coming down on the recovery and it's time to train again. If we just keep coming down on the recovery continually, then you're going to be at a worse starting point when you do your next workout, maybe if that's after 7 days or even you're putting it off for 2 weeks because you felt so bad after that first one that you just want to try and put it off for as long as possible. Just get used to that feeling. It's fine. You're going to be a little bit sore, but your recovery is going to be better. And before you know it, after a couple of weeks, that's prolonged soreness isn't going to be there because your muscles are used to their conditioning and you've got used to the movement patterns that are new that you're asking them to do. So, and that applies for the person who's never done any exercise before in their life as much as it does for the person who's grapples or MMA or whatever, because as much as you like to think that you're strong from your grappling or whatever, it's completely different from resistance training.
I think as well, that's another important thing to sort of put in as well is grappling strong and gym strong. They are very different. Ben Askren talks a lot about it, where he'll happily say that he's not very impressive in the gym when he's lifting weights. But from what you've heard and what you can sort of see when he grapples, is that man has the strength of a giant. And it's sort of making sure that the exercise that you do transfer across pretty well and not sort of buying into the hype of bicep curls are only for bodybuilders. Yeah, but when your biceps need to be strong for when you are defending arm bars, for example, when you're clinching, when you've got in body locks, when you're trying to reach free for a DAS. Like, don't sort of kick something to the curb because you see the bloke in front of the mirror with the next to nothing vest on, bicep curling, staring at himself. Like, it's still a functional exercise.
Yeah. And leg extensions as well.
Oh, and leg extensions, leg curls, hip thrusts. Like, there's a lot of benefits for all the large group muscles, but also for the isolation work as well. Like doing the forearm curls with a barbell. Little things like they look daft, but there's a reason behind them. And like yesterday, I'm sure I must have looked like I had some funny stares when I was training. Like, part of my warm-up routine that I've added into it is sort of lying face down off the edge of a bench and just doing neck extensions, face up and face down. And me, I don't care now when I'm in the gym. Like, if someone looks at me funny, I'm like, I don't care. But doing 100 reps of that, like, you're getting some funny looks. I'm like, I know what I'm doing it for.
Yep.
They don't. If they feel the need to get the phone out and start taking the mic, more fool them.
Yeah.
And then if they say anything, I strangle them. But
100%, mate. So the amount of times I've had funny looks in the gym when I've trained my neck, you can't. It's almost impossible to train your neck in the gym without looking like a nutter.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, for now, if you go into the gym and you see somebody training the neck, that is the last guy that you want to start taking the piss out of.
Exactly.
Because he's probably a wrestler and he'll probably suplex you and land you on your head.
Yeah. It's like in Thailand, they literally tie string to paint buckets, attached to the jaw, and getting that. If you see someone doing that in the gym, you'd be like, "Oh, look at them! What are they doing?" It's like, there's a reason to why these exercises are being done. And if you don't know, go and ask them. Say to them, "Excuse me, I'm not sure what you're doing there. Can I ask why?" If they give you a valid reason, then you've learned something.
And actually, that goes on to a really good point as well, is like most people who are willing to go into a gym and do an exercise like that probably have got a level of being humble themselves and like being willing to pass on that knowledge. That's been my experience over the years. You know, these people who've been training in sport for 20, 30 years longer than you have, like, you don't know everything. Even if you've been training for 10, 15 years, there's somebody out there with one little bit of piece of the puzzle that you can add into your training. And they're usually pretty happy to share it. Yeah. That's been my experience. You know, respectfully are asking them, why are you doing that? I'm trying to do this. You know, how can that help me? And that's, you know, if you see somebody doing that in the gym, great. If you've got somebody at your school who's into resistance training, tap them up. If you know somebody who's a S&C coach and they know what they're doing, speak to them. Get yourself like an effective program put together, because everybody's different. You might be at the start of your journey and you might need something very different from that guy who's 10 years in. And that is always going to be the case. You might need to start off with something that's a little bit more like a bodybuilding style of training to increase your muscle, so it's got more potential to be strong. And then when you've got a strong muscle, you can start focusing on applying that strength for a full range of movement. So you start adding in mobility training. So it's a lifelong journey, isn't it? It's like as much as the lifelong journey is going from white belt to black belt.
Yeah, it's definitely. And I think, like, going back to what you said about if someone's in your school and they lift and you want to sort of ask them questions, most people do enjoy training, like lifting weights with other people. Like, so, and if you say to them, I'm not sure what I'm doing, can I come along with you one day and train with you? As long as you sort of fit into their schedule, then they'll be more than happy for you to join them. Because I'm the same. Like, if someone asks me, or can I come to the gym with you one day, I'm like, look, I can't get to the gym at these other times, but this is when I'm going to be there. If you want to join me, be there and I'll train with you. And like, most people are like that. But yeah, like, I think I've got one more point that I'd really want to sort of go on as well. And you've touched on it a little bit earlier, is referring to like recovery and knowing your body. Is I'm at a position now where I can feel when that sort of overtraining or under recovery is coming on. Like I can feel sort of like sinuses getting blocked up a little bit, kind of similar to like flu-y symptoms. And it's either a case of having to get more calories in and take it down a notch for the day, or just being like, I need to switch off completely for the day. But I've been there before where I've tried to train through it and it's took me off my feet for more than a week. And it is horrendous. So if you sort of feel a little bit more drained one day and you've not really seen anybody with a flu or a cold-like symptoms, take it down a notch and maybe just eat a little bit more food, or speak to your coach or speak to somebody that you know that's in that weight training sort of, they've got a bit of experience in weight training, and ask their advice. Let them know if you're not recovering as much, or let them know what you're doing, and they may be able to just point you in the direction of being, okay, you're not eating enough, maybe up your protein, up your water, sleep more. There's loads and loads of factors. But if you find that you're not recovering to the same degree that you might have been the week before, and it's having a detrimental effect, not only in your training, but on your day-to-day processes, you need to have some serious evaluation and maybe just taking it easy for a couple of days.
Yeah, definitely. Like, strength is one aspect of like a whole family of things that are important, and I won't go over them again, but nutrition, sleep, recovery, cardio, and another one that people overlook as well is we talked about stress training from the gym as being a stress on your body, stress training on the mats as being a stress on your body. But like if you've got anything going on in your life that's like a big important thing and that's stressing you out as well, maybe you've got exams coming up, or like you're going through some personal stuff at home, like relationship issues or whatever, that's another big stress. I think people don't factor that in, and it all, like, probably everybody has heard that cup analogy for stress. Like you've got a cup and with a little hole at the bottom that drains water out, and the more stuff you pour into the top, if you pour in too much in and it's not getting time to drain out quick enough, then your cup's going to overflow, and that's when you're going to start experiencing injuries. Your sleep's going to be rubbish, and you're just going to start breaking your body down in general. So yeah, Sai's completely right. Like, speak to somebody who knows what they're doing, who's been there and done it, but equally, like, learn your body. Everybody's body's going to be different, and the best thing that you can do, from my advice, is just learn your body and learn what it feels like when you're doing this and how to make a change and an adaptation, and just keep learning. It's a learning process over the years. Like, you're not going to get it right in your first year, even if you've got a coach, because they're not going to know your body.
No.
They're going to be able to give you the best advice for you to get there quicker, but actually it's a relationship that needs to develop between you and your body, or like you and your coach over years. You're not going to get it right straight away, so I don't think you are. One other thing I will say as well, which I think is important, and it kind of circles back to what we were talking about at the beginning in terms of different styles of training, and one that we did miss out on was the importance of isometric training. We talked about explosive training and dynamic movements like a bicep curl or something like this, but I think one big overlooked aspect of jiu-jitsu training in particular is isometric. And what that is, in like the simplest way for people, is being able to hold a position and keep it there, and your limbs aren't moving. Maybe like, what's the easiest isometric movement that you could say for somebody? Yeah, clinch for jiu-jitsu, definitely. I'm trying to think of a good one that you could say was a good isometric exercise that people could understand in the gym. Maybe just like holding a bicep curl midway or something like that, or like
even holding a pull-up.
Yeah, something like that. That's probably the easiest one that people can
carries.
Yeah, totally. Or you hold your carries where you're in a fixed position, like maybe just holding a med ball into your chest and squeezing it and standing there is a good example that's probably really transferable to jiu-jitsu.
Everyone's favourite, the wall sit.
The wall sit, plank, anything where you're static basically is an isometric movement. And that builds in with that muscular endurance as well, or strength endurance. So there's many aspects to be covered from strength training, and trying to mesh them all in the week is the tough bit that you need to figure out by yourself or with a good coach.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. That was another episode of the Grapplers Academy. If you liked what you saw, make sure you hit that like and the subscribe button. Drop a comment below with any questions, and don't forget to tell your friends.
Yeah, hitting that like button lets us know that the content that we're putting out is stuff that you're interested in hearing, and leave us some comments helps us update videos for the future and make sure that we're getting the right information out to you. Go and hit us up on the social media pages as well. You can get in touch with us there if you've got any further questions from what we've talked about today. And just make sure that you're sharing the information around. It's important for everybody to learn and develop down the path of Jiu-Jitsu.